Ladies and gentlemen, we're here at the Canuckonomicon. I'm Junior, and this is my pappy, Dirty Clyde.
How you doing?
I'm doing good, and today, I got a question for you. Do you believe in lake monsters?
I believe that people believe in lake monsters.
A nice cagey answer. Yeah, so I've always been kind of on the fence about lake monsters, most lake monsters. I don't believe in the Loch Ness Monster. I think that's been pretty definitively proven to not exist. But today I've got a couple water monsters and a theory that I want to pitch to you based on my research that I've done here. So, I'm assuming you've heard of the Ogopogo. I think it's pretty hard to find someone in Canada who hasn't heard of the Ogopogo.
Yeah, I've heard of it, and I've talked to people who swear they've seen it.
Have you?
Yeah, and I think it was BS. Like, I'm pretty sure. Like, if you look out on Lake Okanagan most days, you can see a log floating out there, and if you look at it hard enough and long enough, you can make yourself believe that that's a creature.
Yeah, a little serpent.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, for those of our listeners who don't know, the Ogopogo is probably one of North America's most famous lake monsters. Definitely Canada's most famous lake monster.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Western Canada.
You think there's one more famous than Eastern?
Well, no, I think Easterners always think that theirs is better, so there's probably one somewhere.
I guess there's the Lake Champlain monster in Quebec, which is like barely in Quebec. It's mostly in New York State, I think.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, because that's Lake Champlain. I mean, in my limited, granted, research that I've done on this, I've come up with a few. You got Champ and Lake Champlain. You've also got the Winnipogo or the Manipogo, which is in Manitoba and
A nice balanced creature, like smack dab in the middle of the country.
Yeah, right there. It's in Lake Manitoba and Winnipogensis, which is just
Winnipegosis?
Yeah, Winnipegosis. That's what it's called. It's a
No, I know.
horrible name for a lake.
Trying to be sensitive. Culturally sensitive, long before it was cool to do so.
Well, yeah, I mean, but why not just call it Lake Winnipogo?
Yeah. Well, because they already have a Winnipeg.
I guess.
Like, come up with a totally different name.
Well, it's connected to Lake Manitoba, which is why a lot of people believe that the Manipogo / Winnipogo are the Same creature.
Oh, man, husband and wife just living in different beds.
That's right. That's right. But getting back to the Ogopogo here, we're talking about a creature that's big, snake-like. It's often associated with the Algonquin water demon. I have the actual Algonquin name written down here. I am not going to try and pronounce that.
No. we would be accused of cultural appropriation.
I think we would be accused of having horrible white accents. Which I'm not touching this name. You can look it up. It's not hard to find. It's N''A-A-Tik. I'm just going to call it the Algonquin Water Demon or the Ogopogo. The name Ogopogo actually, you will not believe where it comes from. Where do you think it comes from?
Pogo sticks.
You know, you're wrong completely. but the actual source of the name is no less ridiculous. It's from a drinking song.
Oh.
It's a little song. It's about a guy who goes to India, and he meets an Indian guy hunting for a monster called the Ogopogo. It was a common kind of what's that thing? Can
dance?
Nah, it wasn't a can dance. what do you call that?
I don't know.
That style of music.
Kicking your foot.
Yeah, I know.
So it's like
The places where can dances were done.
like a bar, like a canteen dance. Or
Yeah, it was something
like
like
a
that. I don't know.
barroom dance.
It's like a barroom song.
Yeah, like a drinking song.
Yeah. Kind of honky-tonk sort of drinking song.
Not that we're endorsing that, children.
I totally
Always
am.
ask your parents before stealing their beer.
Yes. Always get permission before you drink underaged.
And don't say we told you that.
No, it was named after a little song about a guy hunting a little creature called the Ogopogo. The first recorded sighting was in 1873 by Susan Allison. I'm not going to claim that that's the first ever sighting by a human being. Because, like I said, the Algonquin were living in the area, which makes sense. It's a big lake, lots of food available. It's a great area to live. But the first recorded sighting that we have was in 1873 by a woman named Susan Allison. And then I think another very notable sighting was in 1947 when we had some boaters who described it as having a long, sinuous body, 30 feet in length, consisting of about 5 undulations, apparently separated from each other by about a 2-foot space, in which that part of the undulations would have been underwater. There appeared to be a forked tail, of which only one half came above the water. From time to time, the whole thing submerged and came up again. So, your classic lake monster.
Sounds like a big fish.
Yeah, my problem is that up-down undulating motion that they're always...
Yeah.
That you see that with, like, pretty much every lake monster on the planet. And it's biologically unfeasible.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, if by undulations they mean the spine undulates, rather than the movement is an undulating motion.
Well, it seems to be like that's what they're describing, but that up-down undulation, if we're talking about a fish, like an eel, they don't do that.
No, they're side to side.
They're side to side, or even a snake goes side to side.
Yes.
The only thing that goes up and down are water mammals, like whales and dolphins,
whales, yeah.
but they're not big and long and serpentine.
Aquaman.
Oh, maybe it's Aquaman.
From the 1970 series of Aquaman, he undulated.
There you go.
Maybe that's what they're seeing.
So it's confirmed Jason Momoa is a Ogopogo. There you go.
What?
Case closed. Let's wrap up the podcast. I think we
Melania
cracked the
Trump
code.
is one of those lizard people. She's just wearing a human skin suit.
Oh, not Melania Trump. Gwen Paltrow.
Oh yeah, her too.
Yeah, Gwen Paltrow. You can tell because she did that whole thing about like what sort of cheaty foods. What do they call that? Not like comfort food. What's your favorite comfort food?
Right.
And she said, "Well, I like to have some crackers, and some cheese, and some wine." Or no, it wasn't crackers. It was noodles. Noodles and cheese and wine. because I
butter and liver.
It's like she went online and just Googled what are comfort foods, and just separated them all out into separate things in order to seem human. And if you look at Gwyneth Paltrow, her face is slowly getting pulled further and further back.
I saw a picture of Melania Trump on Twitter with some diminutive person beside her, older guy, gray-haired. I don't know American political figures, but he was one. And they both looked like their skin didn't fit.
Well, it's the same thing with Gwyneth Paltrow. My buddy and I were talking about it, and it's like we're just picturing Gwyneth Paltrow sitting there because her actual comfort food is just a bag of flies.
Yeah.
And so she's sitting there with her bag of flies and going, I think I've killed him, folks.
No. I'm okay. Getting back to the Ogopogo.
I personally think this sighting is either bullshit or just they're not explaining it very clearly. Because I just can't buy a creature that goes up and down like that.
This is Susan B. Anthony's sighting?
No. This is just a couple of unnamed boaters.
Boaters. Anonymous boaters.
Anonymous boaters. I'm getting this off of ogopogoquest.com.
Right.
I found another good sighting that I actually liked was 1986, where we get a kind of a description of the creature's head. The head appeared to be about the size of a horse head, and it appeared to have horizontal, conical-shaped structures like horns. Now, these horns seem totally bizarre, right?
Horns on a aquatic beast, yes.
Well...
Narwhal.
Not just the narwhal, but even if we're talking fish, if you look at certain species of boxfish, they have these kind of bony protrusions that come out of their heads.
Are those not more, though, like the lures for...
That would be more anglerfish, but I'm talking like boxfish, like pufferfish.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Even if you're not taking the ones with the spines, you have some that have like horns that they use for...
Quite intimidating.
Well, for sexual selection.
Oh.
Like picking out mates, whoever's got the most impressive horn.
That's one sexy puffer.
That's one big horn coming from Werewolf Jones.
Wait, he's got another one. Where?
Yeah, lower a horn. I could actually buy the horns on a fish, especially this conical shape that they're describing. Because we're not talking like ram's horns here. We're talking just kind of conical.
They're more like the the dinosaur horns that they look at.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of curved or whatever.
Almost like a ram's horn or something.
Yeah. And the thing is that these horns, almost every North American lake monster, from Champ to the Ogopogo to another one that we're going to cover later. I'm not going to give its name up yet, because I don't want people Googling it yet.
The suspense is killing me.
I'm sure it is. They all are described as having these horns on the sides of their heads, which I think is very interesting. Sometimes they're not, but usually a lot of the other features are similar, and if my theory with these horns is if these creatures are real, this is a sexual selection thing. This is for choosing mates. So it would make sense that some wouldn't have them, like the females or the males, depending on which ones have the horns. So that's we'll get more into my unified lake monster theory later,
Yes.
which I have.
Mathematically deduced.
That's
Squaring pi and dividing it by the hypotenuse of a right triangle.
Yeah, that's right. Speaking of creatures with different heads, 1989. It's described as being football shaped. This one is also considerably shorter than the other sightings. So this one's only about 15 feet, whereas most of the sightings of the Ogopogo reported as being 30 to 40 feet long. Which sounds big, but a creature that size, like if you look at like crocodiles, you have creatures that size that live
12 feet.
They're 12 feet long. Yeah. And some are even longer. Like, so I could see there being a large predator in this lake. I do have some problems that I'll get more into later, but it's not implausible. I think a lot of people try to just sell it off as being totally implausible that a creature this size could even live in the lake. But I don't think it is. I think there is a possibility a creature this size could survive in the lake.
I would think there's enough fish stock.
Well, and I'm not even thinking
Little children.
Yeah,
pets.
That's actually closer. What I'm thinking is, assuming there weren't a lot of humans around the lake, who's to say this thing doesn't come up to the shore and eat deer?
Yeah, just sort of...
Like a crocodile would.
Oh, so you're thinking amphibian.
Not totally amphibious, but something that comes to the shore, leaps out of the water, grabs a prey item and drags it back in, drowns it, and then eats it. Like, that's a hunting strategy we see in other animals.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't it?
Hippos.
Well, hippos eat errant boaters.
It's their favorite delicacy.
The errant boater and crocodiles. So
Nigerian tribesman number 7. He's delicious. Watch for his kids.
So one interesting thing about the Ogopogo, around 2000, we start seeing photos. Tons of photos. And this is where it all falls apart for me. Honestly, is the quote-unquote photographic evidence of the Ogopogo. None of these are very compelling. Some of them are like, one of them I saw was very clearly a boat wake. Like, yeah. I could even see the waves cresting.
Yes.
I'm looking at this.
That one.
Yeah, I'm looking at this and it's like, oh, mysterious creature lives in Lake Okanagan. And I'm like, that's a boat wake. I grew up in Alberta. We have a lot of lakes around this particular area that I grew up in, which you're my dad.
Yes.
I've seen boat wakes on lakes. That's what they look like. Even the most compelling quote-unquote photo that a lot of people freak out about saying it's the head, I looked at this thing, it's a duck.
Yes, that's a duck there. Yes. Well,
it's a blurry, crappy photo of a duck, but it's a duck.
It's like all the photos of the Loch Ness creature.
Well, except for the one that is a proven hoax.
Yes.
Not just proven, but admitted.
The one that sunk to the bottom?
No, the one that looks like a plesiosaur.
Right.
Yeah, that little silhouette, but where even if you just look at the picture closely and you look at the size of the waves compared to the creature, it's so obviously a model.
Yes, but that model sunk.
Oh, did it?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Now the search is on for the sunken
for the shitty Loch Ness monster. That's the big hunting for Nessie nowadays. Right. They're still looking for her, just now they know she's fake.
Yeah, then they'll get eaten by a plesiosaur.
Or Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah. Or Melania Trump.
There is another very uncompelling sighting of a large wake in 2017.
Every time a boat goes by,
well, this
phone lines are lighting up.
This family was, I read the sighting. This family, they saw something out of the corner of their eyes while they're driving, and then they came out, and there's this giant wake, and there was no boat in sight. And I'm like, come on. That could have been a duck.
Like, could have been.
Like, if you've ever seen geese take off,
yeah.
They do that flapping thing, and it looks impressive, the wake they leave behind, but it's a duck, guys.
Could be a muskrat. Beaver.
Could be a muskrat. It could be a moose. Moose like to swim.
Wait, they have the horse-shaped head?
Yeah, and a juvenile moose would have the little horns.
Littler horns, yeah.
Yeah. And so it really could be a moose. It could be an undiscovered creature. Most likely it's all made up.
Yeah,
or a moose. Or just like misidentified animals.
Probably if you map the tourism trade in the Okanagan Valley, it will mirror to a great extent the Ogopogo sightings.
Oh, almost certainly. I have a few problems with the Ogopogo. Like I said, I could buy a large animal that comes up to the shore to feed. Lake Okanagan is probably one of the most developed lakes in the country.
Yeah, definitely.
There's no way a large animal is coming to shore to feed that often without people seeing it and getting better photographs than what we have.
Yeah, and we don't see that many lost children to...
No, not to Ogopogos.
No.
So I have a hard time buying that an animal this large is living in Okanagan and feeding on prey animals in the area. But there is one creature that I find a lot more interesting because I had never heard of it before until I started doing research for this episode.
And that after this. Well, we're back. We had to have a station break. We had to exchange beers.
Yeah.
And then, the music you're listening to was by yours truly, Crossing Clay. So, if you don't like it, I don't care. If you do like it, send us a wire. I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, you have a SoundCloud for Crossing Clay, right?
Yeah, no, it's under my actual name.
Okay, that's right. Maybe we'll stick a link in the show notes. Maybe we won't. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how this goes. How much foul language gets passed after the third beer.
That's right.
Trying to keep this a PG show.
Yeah, I don't want to put an E rating on here when I get this up on iTunes. So.
Yeah, no.
Anyways, moving on to our next water beast here, which I want to thank the Pine Barrens Institute at pinebaronsinstitute.com for actually having a surprisingly in-depth article on this particular creature, considering I live in Edmonton and I can't get access to the Edmonton Journal articles that a lot of this is sourced from. Because they're from, 1950.
Oh, you could, but you'd have to go into their little microfiche section.
Yeah, and I just do not have that kind of time.
Well, no, and plus you gotta wear one of those dust masks that Zach Bagans always wears into his ghost adventures.
That's right.
Scenes.
Yeah, so, I really want to... I don't know how they managed to get access to these, but they did, because they're in Virginia. Really cool website, especially if you're into cryptozoology. They have a lot of really awesome resources on there.
They probably lied. They probably said they were someone else.
Oh!
And then got access to the stuff.
That's right.
Said, oh, gee, we're, really...
That's right.
Mr. Obama is so busy right now, but he really wants this information. And have a person send it to us.
That's right. But we're going to talk a little bit about my hometown here. I live in Edmonton, which is on the North Saskatchewan River, which is almost 1,300 kilometers long, about 800 miles. Goes across both parts of Saskatchewan and almost all of Alberta, ending at the Saskatchewan River's fork to the east and the Rocky Mountains to the west. In 1939, there was a sighting of a river creature in the North Saskatchewan near Rocky Mountain House by a Nakota chief named Chief Walking Eagle, who lived in the area. He reported seeing a creature rise from the river with horns instead of ears and eyes as large as dinner plates. After getting to dry land, he attempted to approach the creature a second time and got a better look at it as it charged him, and he described the beast as having no... Sorry, you're dying over there. What happened?
Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. He walked back, and it charged him.
Yeah. Okay. I'm good now.
No, you're not. Your face is yeah. You're gonna have
the headphones are warm. Oh, continue. I'm sorry.
He described the beast as having no trunk or tusks, but a quote head much like an elephant's.
Oh, well then. Did he know what an elephant was at that time?
Apparently, because
when was this he made the report?
1939.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. It's like they have books.
He'd have seen an elephant.
Yep. This wasn't the last sighting of the thing. In fact, 3 years later, the creature was spotted again in 1942. On July 22nd, a group of boys near Rocky Mountain House spotted the creature while they were playing in the river. They were throwing rocks at a log, only it wasn't a log. It was, in fact, this creature. This innocent game of rock toss quickly became horrifying as the log charged them and chased them out of the river. Again, it was described as having eyes as large as dinner plates, Only this time we have the added feature of a mouth full of sharp teeth. The creature also apparently was able to come partway out of the water as it chased them, but did eventually retreat back into the cold waters of the North Saskatchewan.
River sturgeon?
Well, I've seen...
Huge.
They do grow huge, but have you ever seen a river sturgeon's mouth?
I guess they're sucker mouths, right?
Yeah, they got like a big... It's almost like a proboscis that like drops out of the bottom of their face.
But the eye's the size of dinner plates. You can see that.
You got the big eyes, yeah.
When you're afraid, you magnify everything.
Well, and this is also kind of feeding into that theory I had about the Ogopogo of a creature that comes partway out of the water to take down prey.
Right.
In fact, our next sighting that I have here about this thing, it described as having gray-black skin, large reddish eyes, which is what gave this creature its nickname, Pink Eye. I kid you not.
Pink Eye chase standing eagle.
Yeah, walking eagle.
Halfway around the block.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also around this time, farmers in Edmonton and Rocky Mountain House started reporting sheep missing near the river. This could be chalked up to sheep being sheep.
Just walking in.
Just walking into the river and getting washed away. But in 1946, a farmer named Robert Forbes watched as a 20-foot-long grayish creature with horns on the side of its head and a mouthful of vicious teeth came out of the river, grabbed a calf and began dragging it to the water's edge. He attempted to save the animal, but was unable to deter the giant beast, and it made off with its prey. So...
Crocodile?
Well, it's...
Alligator?
in the North Saskatchewan,
Yeah, really unusual, but...
Yeah, but, again, we have this grayish-black creature, big dinner plate eyes, reddish dinner plate eyes, big mouth full of sharp teeth. Just like I was supposing, coming out of the water, grabbing a prey item, dragging it back in. I also like the addition of the gray-black skin here, which a lot of river fish, especially in the North Saskatchewan, have that kind of coloration because it's cold water.
Yeah, that's a river fish color.
Yeah.
I wish sturgeon had teeth. Because, you know.
Sturgeon would be an easy explanation. I was thinking more something like a Wells catfish.
What about, like, jackfish?
It could be
Like
a very large jackfish, yeah. But, again, it's a river. They don't generally live in rivers. They're more lake fish. When we talk a little bit about Champy, the Lake Champlain monster, the original sighting that was recorded of that was by Samuel de Champlain. Problem is, looking at his notes again, we're almost certain he was actually describing a pike, a gar pike.
Yeah.
So just a big pike that lives in Lake Champlain. The last major sighting of pink eye, though, was in 1947 by a pilot who spotted what he suspected was a log. When the log swam away, along with another smaller log, he suddenly suspected it was no longer a log.
So he saw a pair.
He saw a pair. What a larger specimen, and what he supposed was its child, its offspring. Which suggests that there was a breeding population of these things in there. Overall, my thoughts on this creature are it's way more plausible to me than the Ogopogo. Mm-hmm. Sightings drop off after 1947. There are pretty much none. So whatever it was, it's extinct probably. And in the kind of late 30s, early 40s, or late 30s to late 40s, around this time that we were getting all these sightings, there just wasn't a whole lot of development along the North Saskatchewan. There was Edmonton, there was Rocky Mountain House, and that was about it.
Yeah.
So I could totally see a creature like this kind of going unnoticed.
Yeah, well, and the water in those rivers would have been much deeper.
Yeah.
Much richer in terms of available food.
Well, and also the fact that this thing clearly can come up on land to hunt if it needs to take down prey.
Yeah.
And, a small deer, like even a large deer, smaller than a calf.
Yeah.
About the size of a large sheep. So.
Well, a small deer is about the size of my dog. So. Yeah. Well, I mean, totally plausible. I just, I mean, who's to say that there haven't been kinds of like jackfish or other kind of predator species
or
that were in rivers.
Well, I'm thinking based on the description we have of this thing, almost a kind of eel, that kind of bony head, where if you've seen a conger eel, they have that kind of a bony, almost horse-like head. Mm-hmm. Again, we have the horns, which is a common description of a lot of these lake monsters.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Well, and that's one of the main theories about this guy,
right.
Is that it was all just made up. The big fact that leads to this theory that it was all made up, all the articles were written by the same person.
Wow. Even quoting one that quoted...
Yeah. Grace Shearholtz is the writer of all the articles about about pink eyes. And it's interesting to note, again, that these are coming out along the same time as some of the earlier Ogopogo sightings.
Right.
It's almost like somebody who lived in Rocky Mountain House, like Grace Shearholtz, who was from there, wanted to drive up tourism to her little town.
Yeah, yeah.
I will say Chief Walking Eagle was a real person, though. I actually looked him up. There is a hotel named after him in Rocky Mountain House.
They should name him Running Eagle.
Nope. His name is Chief Walking Eagle, and he was actually famous for being able to predict winters.
Oh, wow. When that bunion aches.
Yeah. He apparently was uncannily good at predicting how bad a winter was going to be, and he actually had some national notoriety for that.
Oh, that's good.
But a lot of these sightings, like we have Robert Forbes and Chief Walking Eagle are about the only names we have connected to these sightings. Other than Grace Shearholtz, who I'm pretty sure made up most of these.
For a local newspaper. This is for the Edmonton Journal?
This was for, it was syndicated, Edmonton Journal and Calgary Herald.
They were combined at the time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she wrote for both of them, as well as for a more local one to Rocky Mountain House.
Right. So she probably wrote for the Rocky newspaper, and then they were purchased by...
Journal and Herald, which were owned, which I think even still are owned by the same company.
Well, now they are. I don't think they were. They're now owned by Southam or...
Yeah. So that's one possibility. Another possibility is, again, we come back to moose. Moose like to ford rivers.
Yeah, and they sure like to drag sheep into the water.
Well, that one I think is embellished.
Just for fun.
If we're going for the moose theory.
Yeah.
I think if we go for the moose theory, I think Walking Eagles is the only actual sighting.
Yeah, and, well, I mean, Forbes was a pilot, correct?
No, the guy after Forbes who isn't named.
Well, the pilot who saw the
logs.
The logs that, were then
wiggling away. That could be anything.
That could be moose.
Well, it could just be...
You're in the air. You're looking down.
Well, he could even just be like a burbot. like a small catfish.
Yeah.
Which do live in the river. Burbot live in the river.
Yeah.
But this river is connected to a bunch of lakes. There's all sorts of things that it could have been in that particular sighting. But I genuinely think Walking Eagles was the only actual sighting. Because the behavior he describes lines up with a moose. Even that head shape. If you took the trunks and tusks off an elephant, it's not that different from a moose. And sure, he's been living in the area, but we don't get moose all that often in Alberta.
Well, it's not common to stump. Well, if you see a moose, you stumble on a moose.
Yeah, and he was crossing the river with his horse and carriage.
Right.
At the time, I read the whole sighting.
Oh, he was he was
Yeah.
well off enough to have a horse and carriage.
He had a couple horses and a carriage. Not a carriage, cart. Sorry, cart horses. He had a couple cart horses, and he's fording the river, and he gets spooked by this animal, which most of us have moose in kind of two categories: female and male. Mm-hmm. And males have the giant antlers, and females have nothing. If you saw something in between those two, which those antlers grow.
Yeah, that's right. They grow and they come off and they get damaged. And
so if you just saw something with little kind of smaller horns that hadn't fully grown into antlers yet.
And the pictures of the moose when they're getting that skin off the antlers. And blood dripping from it.
Oh, yeah.
It's a real mess. Yeah,
and if you're not used to seeing that, like, that's going to be horrifying.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's easy to kind of ascribe a mystical connection to nature to Native Americans or First Nations people.
Yeah.
I don't think Walking Eagle had any particular mysterious connection to nature. He saw a juvenile moose.
And it scared the
crap out of him. Which, honestly, if I saw a juvenile moose, I'd have the crap scared out of me too. The Robert Forbes sighting, I think, is just total bullshit. I think this guy lost a calf in the river. Which happens, like... the North Saskatchewan is not a small river.
He saw anything, did he?
Yeah, he's the one who described seeing the creature come out and drag the calf down, and that he tried to save it.
I wonder if he ate it and he just didn't want to fess up. You know, I mean, people do that all the time. Why don't I spin a yarn?
Yep.
Your sister used to do that all the time.
My friend broke into the bedroom.
Yeah, through the window.
And then she stole everything.
Yeah, and then left.
I'm kind of not sold on the pink eyes, but...
So far, we've got Ogopogo 0.
Yeah.
We've got, what's this one called?
Pink eyes.
Pink eyes 0. So we're 0 for 2.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, the Winnepogo and Manipogo, I'm not even wanting to really do a whole coverage on them because...
I think they were just chapped because they didn't have a monster.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Like, even looking at the names even come from the Ogopogo. They're just Lake Winnipeg and Lake Manitoba's Ogopogos.
Yeah.
As for Champ, again, we have the horns. And this kind of leads into my unified lake monster theory, which I have because I'm a nerd with way too much time on my hands.
Sitting in the dark alone.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what I do at work all day. I sit in the dark alone and think about lake monsters.
I wonder.
So here's my two theories, my two unified lake monster theories. I'm going to give you my realistic theory. And I'm going to give you my probably total bullshit, but way more fun to believe.
So we can
theory.
crap all over either one, or you want me to be sensitive
about
one?
I don't really give a shit. You do what feels good, my dude.
All right.
My realistic theory. These are all bull honky. These are all bull lore. It's all just a combination of misidentifying animals. People being primed, they're coming in psychically primed to see something. So they see a boat wake and it's a serpent.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's the thing.
Because everybody else that looks at it says, I don't see what you're seeing.
Yeah. Exactly. That's my realistic theory. My realistic theory is that a lot of this is just a combination of the tourism industry priming people to see an animal where there isn't one. That's why we don't have any sightings of pink eyes after 1947, because I'm sorry, people didn't just suddenly start flocking to Rocky Mountain House to go see a river monster.
That has only been seen twice.
Yeah. Maybe 3 times. So I realistically kind of know these things probably aren't real. But, as I've noted, there's a lot of similar traits. Winnepogo and the Matapogo are both described as being serpentine, having horns on the sides of their head. Champ, again, sightings all describe it as serpentine, having horns on the sides of its head. And then we have Pink Eyes, a river creature that has similar description. Once again, smaller, which makes sense if it lives in a river as opposed to a lake. So my unified lake monster theory is that these are all different species of a similar animal. So we're dealing with some sort of giant North American eel that has the males or the females. I don't know which ones because I haven't been able to sex one of these creatures. Have kind of horns that they use to pick mates.
You did say sex one of the creatures not have sex with.
That's correct.
Okay, we're keeping this PG, people.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm going down like
no gender. He meant gender identify.
Just for those listening, my dad is a crotchety middle-aged man. Just to clarify.
Oh my!
I'm going down like Steve Irwin. I'm wrestling one of these animals,
and
I've got my arm around its mouth, and I'm just reaching down to its cloaca, and I'm shoving my finger up in there to see if I feel anything.
Don't all fish have cloaca?
Yeah.
Oh, so you'd have to dig. Never mind. Let's move on with your theory. So either male or female has these horns.
Has these horns, which are used, I think, probably for sexual selection. We have a food source in deer, in rabbits, and things that come down to the water to drink. These animals can clearly, if we look at the pink eyes, can clearly come out of the water at least long enough to take down a prey item. What do they do in the winter? I imagine they probably hibernate. Like a lot of fish will just go down to the bottom, just sleep. That way they conserve a lot of energy. We even have frogs that can be completely frozen solid.
Yeah.
And defrost in the summer.
Sure.
So there's no reason why one of these things couldn't do that. So we have here a biologically plausible animal. Again, this is my fun theory. This is a theory that I think that I wish was true. Realistically, I don't think it is. I don't think any of these animals can be real because there's just not enough food. If we look at the Ogopogo, if it is coming up to the shore to feed, why don't we have any beached ones? Why don't we have better pictures? Why don't we have reports of attacks on humans? We don't have any of that.
Well, and in a populated area like that, you would have to have way more sightings than what you have.
Exactly.
I mean, it's one of the busiest lakes in the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most visited, kids, parents, beaches everywhere.
It's as busy as the Great Lakes, but like a third of the size.
Yeah.
And that's being generous.
Yeah.
Like Lake Okanagan is not huge compared to the Great Lakes. It is beautiful. It's a wonderful glacier lake, but it is busy.
Yeah, it's super busy. Like, I mean, there's no way you'd miss something like that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So I just think plausibly an animal like this just can't exist out there.
I think also, I mean, following your evidence that in order to maintain any kind of population over time, and I don't care whether the things live 100 or 200 years.
Yeah.
You got to have more than one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like way more than one.
Absolutely. Yeah. You've got to have a breeding population, which I think when I was doing research on like how many do you need for a stable breeding population, you're looking in the high hundreds to low thousands.
Yeah.
And that's just to have a stable, genetically diverse enough breeding population to not suffer from long-term genetic disease.
Yeah, exactly. Although probably with fish creatures or...
It's probably less of a concern.
Way less, yeah.
I mean, you look at whales. Or
Well, but those are mammalian species, would be
Yeah.
a different thing.
yeah, it's true, and they're also their territory is much larger. Like
Yes.
like you look at the largest creatures, oarfish, a great example. That's the other thing that really bothers me about a lot of these animals is their similarity to European sea monsters.
Right.
Right down to the horns, to the undulating body. And so even this idea that they're based, like, because I actually did some research on the Algonquin water demon, and it's more of a spiritual creature.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a serpent. It's not a lake monster.
Nobody's saying it's a real thing. They're saying
Yeah.
this is part of our mythology.
And not even just that, the way they describe it, it's not a giant serpent that lives in the lake. That sort of description is a very European description.
Right, because we want it to be concrete.
Well, not just that, but even the serpentine, the undulating. If you look at old maps of the world,
Right.
when you look at Leviathan and other
Here there
sea
be
monsters,
dragons.
here there be dragons. What do you have? A horned serpent.
Yeah.
That's a very satanic image.
Yeah.
You know, a horned serpentine beast, probably got some fire coming out of its mouth.
Yeah. It's
You're
got arms too.
yes,
Claws.
little claws.
All the
you
better
have
for
a
grabbing the sheep.
yeah, you have a very distinct European monster here, which tells me this isn't even a native Canadian thing. This isn't a First Nations monster that Europeans adopted. It's a European monster that First Nations culture was kind of used as a way to explain.
Yeah. And of course, the tourism industry latched onto that and thought they'd make a buck or two from it.
Oh, hell yeah, why wouldn't you?
Yeah,
If
exactly.
you're out to make money, this will draw people to the lake.
Well, with that, I think we'll wrap up our inaugural edition.
Our first episode, guys. If you liked what you heard, make sure to like it on your various podcatchers. Leave us a review. When we have some socials to stick up, I'll tell you where those are. We don't have any right now, so...
No, we're trying to keep ourselves anonymous here.
That's right.
Don't want to be lynched in our beds by all the believers.
by the Illuminati.
That's right. Although I was contacted by one, which is probably not a story that... Well, hey, I was contacted on Instagram by a member of the Illuminati.
By the Bavarian Illuminati?
A member. I don't know whether he was Bavarian or what.
Well, that's what they're called, the Bavarian Illuminati.
Are they?
Yeah, so that's a whole episode that I'll say for
tuned because that'll be
that's coming up.
episode.
I can tell you a whole story about the Bavarian Illuminati, but you were contacted by the Illuminati.
I was.
So there you go, guys. Dirty Clyde, my inside source. He's got contacts in the Bavarian Illuminati, guys.
That's correct.
So
As well as the Knights Templar.
and then that's Grandpa. So stay tuned, guys. We'll have another episode up in a couple weeks, maybe even just a week. Depends on how I'm feeling on research. But I really hope you'll stick around and stay safe.
Keep your eyes open.
Cool.